Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week to try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to the wrong side because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
I want to really, when she gets in, and I want to really, when she gets in, and
there is no other way I can explain that outside the fact of that man is really, truly lost his shit. All right, guys, today's date, January the 7th, 2026. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to How the Frack We Got Here. Of course, my name is Will. And on this show, we do try to make sense of it all by giving you the news straightforward. Hopefully doing our best to do another year of that. Like we said, we only cite from the most reputable sources. We don't do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, now CBS. Wherever you get your extreme left, extreme right views from, we simply don't do that. We simply provide with just the facts and nothing else. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch ourselves and our trying to be professional, but let's be honest, words do fly. At the same time, guys, many things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, like we said, guys, first show of the year for 2026. Thank you for rocking back again with me. I certainly appreciate that. And I would be remiss if we don't talk about January 6th with a whole bunch of white, confused, illegitimate, possibly backwards incels, purely educated, easily brought into a cult white people decided to basically try to thwart an election. And it's been quite some time since then, but I feel it's always nice to have a refresher of where we're at so far and what Taco has done and pretty much what we warned you was going to happen.
Today is January 6th, marking 5 years since the attack on the Capitol. And House Democrats released 2 new reports on the aftermath of the riot. They document President Trump's sweeping pardons for nearly all the rioters. The findings show more than 30 of those pardoned have been charged or convicted of new crimes. The reports also point to the firings of Justice Department officials who prosecuted the rioters.
So what does that tell us, ladies and gentlemen? That the photos you see there of maybe 1 or 2 black people sprinkled in a sea of confused mayo, nobody's in jail. And if they are in jail, they are very few of them back on repeat crimes. But everybody that decided to basically bomb rush the Capitol, because for all those that don't remember, Taco decided at the time to hold a rally talking about we're going to stop the steal because his VP at the time, Mike Pence, would not step in as he says the election was stolen. And we all remember the story. Folks went down to the Capitol. The same folks that were, inciting the mob on Taco's side all dipped out. Josh Hawley turned into a track star. And of course, thanks to the efforts of a few Capitol Police people, they thwarted them from actually doing any harm outside of, some damage to offices, things of that nature. But hey, Taco decided to give pardons to all of them. So what does that tell you? A pedophile convict is literally giving terrorist pardons. But we called it already. What we didn't call, guys, what also happened over the weekend, specifically on Saturday. Well, if you're a former president of Venezuela, you are now in the confines of the U.S. Why? Well, because our president decided to basically commit a war crime.
Early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer, all perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, it's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, like never before. These highly trained warriors operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea. We're just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far, with capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have. And you see that even if you just look at the boats. You know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela. And that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States. and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world.
So I'm just going to leave it right there just because, well, oh boy, how do we, you know what? I am not going to lie. The reason why I labeled this title of our first show of 2026, why I labeled it War Pigs, does anybody remember the lyrics to Black Sabbath? Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses, evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction, in the fields the bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning, death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah. I'm sorry, I can't sing, but you got to give it to Ozzy Osbourne because, again, War Pigs, just right there. I'm just saying, politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that role to the poor. Again, War Pigs, Venezuela edition. But more importantly about that, guys, we all witnessed a war crime. We did. We literally witnessed a war crime. We decided that Venezuela's president needed to be removed forcefully, him and his wife, unaliving his personal protection detail and whisking him and his wife to the US, to New York, to face crimes. Now, that's a war crime. We as a country cannot decide another country can just go in and remove its president because we don't like the way the president was doing things, which is kind of counterintuitive because Russia is doing the same thing to Ukraine right now. I find that amazing that Russia is doing the same thing to Ukraine. And they're saying they have land rights, and Ukraine saying, bitch, please. And it's amazing to me that Taco is like, well, we'll help you, but we're going to get something out of this because he's ever the con man. He called himself a businessman, but he's forever the con man. But now he's a war criminal because we entered a country unprovoked. We entered a country that had nothing, that did not attack us. Rules of engagement were not even existed because Venezuela was a country to themselves. Now, don't get me wrong. Maduro has his own problems. Keep in mind, Maduro basically fixed, and this is what I find very interesting. There was an election in Venezuela, and the other person outside of Maduro had won. Maduro decided, nah, I'm still stay president and use his influence to stay that way. So yes, Maduro did steal the election. Maduro actually crashed Venezuela's economy to where the level of poverty is astronomically high. And at the same time, he still considers himself a folklore hero. Now, let's get off the fact that Taco, along with his administration, committed a war crime on Saturday by basically saying Venezuela's president needs to go. Even though, again, Trump also did not seek congressional approval, which a lot of people say, well, under special circumstances, all the constitutional lawyers out there wearing red hats and ill-educated. Well, under special circumstances, Taco president doesn't need Congress approval to go in. I mean, look at Obama. Didn't Obama take out bin Laden? Did Obama ask for congressional support? Two problems with that. Bin Laden was the mastermind behind 9/11, and there was already an active manhunt for him. And because of a tip that was given to him, to the Department of Defense, the President Obama at the time could act within his rights as president to go ahead and execute what was now known as the unaliving of probably one of the greatest hated terrorists in our modern times. What other reason do we have to go after Maduro, I'm sorry. I almost called him a vaccine. What other reason we had to go over Maduro for? Because yes, he ran Venezuela into the ground. But I've said before and I'll say it again. I know there are a lot of people, former Venezuelans that are living in Florida and other places, are celebrating that Maduro is no longer in power. And yet the irony is he's going to be facing crimes in the US. Whereas if Taco or Bush or Cheney ever left, because keep in mind, Bush 2.0 is still considered a war criminal in the International Criminal Court. If he ever left the States, that warrant is still good. If Dick Cheney ever left the States, well, again, you know what I mean. Problem, what I'm saying is, if they left and they get caught, they could actually find themselves in the ICC. But I just find it amazing that Taco is trying to sit there and say, well, the Venezuelan people need freedom. And it's very reminiscent of Bush in Iraq. Well, Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. On what type of intelligence tells you that? Which again, they never could prove. But what happened? A troop surge in Afghanistan. A troop surge in Iraq. Saddam Hussein was eventually found in a foxhole and again was unalived. But what was the remainder of Iraq? The oil companies stepped in. Refineries got built. American soldiers were protecting more oil refineries than they were strategic areas in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the thing about Afghanistan is we occupied Iraq and Afghanistan with high troop levels to the point to where Americans were all asking the question, why do we need to occupy the Middle East? We got bin Laden. Why are we still there? Which again, eventually did lead to Biden making the decision to withdraw from Afghanistan because again, we honestly were fighting a losing war with the Taliban because fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan was like Vietnam all over again. Somebody had to pull the plug on a war you can't win, and you keep throwing bodies at it. At the same time, Venezuela is much like Iraq. You're only there for one reason and one reason alone. And he sat there and said it at the end of the video. We're going to have our U.S. oil companies come in, and they're going to pump the oil out. Which begs the question of this whole entire production. Was it really about drugs? And honestly, it wasn't. I've said multiple times on the show, the war on drugs is bullshit. Because I'll be honest with you, if the war on drugs, we try to say, well, most of our drugs come from Venezuela. Really? This is coming from the same people that decide to bomb supposedly drug boats that come out of Venezuela, but have yet to produce a single shred of evidence to back up their claims. Whereas Mexico, which again, Fox News them couldn't stop talking about those cartels. If you felt that way about drugs coming into the U.S., you won't go nowhere near those cartels. But you'll go after Venezuela because that's just like Taco. Taco will never go after somebody whose guns and personnel match your own. He'll never go after Japan. He'll never go after North Korea. He'll never go after China. Well, technically, North Korea and China basically own his ass. But the point I'm getting at is he'll never go against Russia because, that would make things awkward for Putin at the dinner table. Because let's be honest, now we realize that Taco is a power bottom, kind of makes sense why he doesn't really balk to Putin that way. Like I said, don't want to break up a happy home. The thing I'm getting at is here, this was basically a war crime to basically go after Venezuela's oil reserve. And that's the part I'm getting at here because it's not about drug trafficking. Even Maduro in an interview said the same doggone thing, which I'll just let y'all be the judge of it. It's subtitled, so bear with me 1 second.
El 4 de octubre.
Y no te dio
Cordonazo
una gripe.
relativamente barata.
Es muy barato.
Y son eléctricas.
Hay sistemas de crédito, no hay que es por donde vamos a pasar ahora.
Ahí es.
Y el gobierno de Estados Unidos lo sabe, porque se le hemos dicho a muchos de sus voceros que si quieren conversar seriamente de un acuerdo de combate contra el narcotráfico, estamos listos. Que si quieren petróleo de Venezuela, está lista Venezuela para inversión estadounidense como con Chevron, cuando quieran, donde quiera y como quieran. Lo que yo sí te puedo decir que el sistema defensivo nacional que combina la fuerza popular, militar, policial, ha garantizado y garantiza la integridad territorial, la paz del país y el uso y disfrute de todos nuestros territorios. Y nuestro pueblo está seguro y en paz.
Now, don't get me wrong. It is state news. It is state news. But the one thing I wanted you guys to get out of all that was he sat there and said, if you could see it, and if you couldn't see it, I'll apologize. He sat there and said, like with Chevron, whenever they want it, and however they want it, because he sat there and said, if they want oil, Venezuela is ready for U.S. investment. Ladies and gentlemen, the war on drugs is bullshit. It is basically a fear fact. It is a red flag to get your attention. Well, that's where all the drugs coming from. They could care less. They can care less. It's basically, we have what you want. Sorry. Venezuela basically sat there and said, we have what you want. If you want to deal with us, you're going to have to pay us. And that's what Maduro is saying. We're waiting for U.S. investment, but we're sitting, and they know what they're sitting on. Again, for all those that don't know, Venezuela has the largest oil reserve on earth, bigger than the U.S., Iraq, and Russia combined. They are sitting on it, and they know it. It's like if the Beverly Hillbillies. It's like the Beverly Hillbillies, if you don't remember that show, they were sitting on oil in their land. Think of it 100 times plus. That's Venezuela. At the same time, Maduro sat there and said, we're ready for investment. You guys have just got to basically match us. To which, let's be honest, when it came to Taco sat there and said, I'd rather remove you. And that's what they did. He literally committed a war crime. And here's his, even though I've said it, it needs to be said. It's a war crime what that man did. And at the same time, if any other president, and this is the thing and I'm going to get to that momentarily because it sets a dangerous precedent going forward. That if a country doesn't like how another country is doing, then they may move forward. And I know a lot of people are going, but Will, didn't we have something in place? We did. And Taco, like he usually does, will try to name it and make it his own.
All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal. But we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Donroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen.
Okay, so for all those that are wondering, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. I face planted so hard because For a lot of people, go, well, a lot of people don't know what the Monroe Doctrine is, but we supersede it. We're calling it the Don Roe Doctrine. I swear, this man finds any other reason to put his name on shit. And I know a lot of people, if you don't remember U.S. history or never took a civics class, I'll explain the clip notes. The Monroe Doctrine was basically in 1823 by President James Monroe. Long story short, he warned European powers at the time not to basically come into the U.S. In return, the U.S. did not try to invade other countries unless provoked. That's it. That is it. It's pretty much saying you stay on your side, we stay on our side, everybody be cool. Because at the time, keep in mind, they were still trying to do colonization in areas, and of course the European nations, and they again were trying to go into the US. And again, that's what the Monroe Doctrine is. It's pretty much saying, don't invade us, we won't invade you. That's pretty much it. But again, this lets you know that Taco would rather be a dictator. A dictator. And he is making dictator moves right now. Like basically saying, if I want a country that has plenty of oil in it, I'm going to take it. And here's the real accomplices out of all of it, which again, we're going to show momentarily. The real accomplices are the Republican Party. And a lot of people are going to say, but Will, what about the Democratic Party? The Democratic Party, all they can do is condemn it. Because they can do, and again, for a lot of people to understand this is why voting matters. This is why when you're the party that does not have a majority in the House and Senate, you are limited in what you can do. Yeah, you can bring up a vote to try to curtail the president's power. You can put in grievances. You can write op-eds. You can do all these things. But if you are the party that does not have a majority, unfortunately, you do not have a lot of power, or you have a lack thereof. This is why a lot of people, the other people on Democrats, fight back. How? Outside of being vocal, outside of condemning Taco, outside of saying that this is a coup, that we literally did a war crime. We did a coup d'etat. We did all these things, but that's all Democrats can say. This is the reason why, if I'm the Democrats, midterms this year, November of this year, actually, the White House, specifically Taco, is very afraid, and I'm going to show why he's very afraid a little bit later on. But that's all the Democrats can do, while the Republicans are the true accomplices. The Republicans know what Taco did is an impeachable offense. You basically invaded a country without provocation, removed its president, and pretty much sat there and said, we are now occupying Venezuela in the same way we occupied Iraq, in the same way we occupied Afghanistan. And don't think for 1 second, because always, well, it's about oil. Yeah, oil companies are moving in. Don't be surprised if the Dow Jones tomorrow, which again, either tomorrow or day after tomorrow, energy stocks go up, oil companies go up, because you don't think that Taco may or may not have had a conversation. Because like the Democrats said, nobody informed them. Taco didn't inform them of their plans, but just listen to the reporter on Air Force One, ask Taco questions. And I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, but I just want you to hear his answers on what he says. And again, it makes sense because he's always trying to line his pockets for him and his friends. And if you're an oil company, going back to the whole thing at Mar-a-Lago where he invited a whole bunch of people, follow the money.
That we got everything back. And nobody killed.
The next question is who's in charge of Venezuela right now? Have you spoken to the newly sworn in president there, Rodriguez? And what are your thoughts on the entire situation? You said the U.S. would run Venezuela.
We're dealing with the people. We're dealing with the people that just got sworn in. And don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
That means we're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
We're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
No, I haven't, but other people
Do you want to?
Yeah, at the right time I will.
Did the U.S. give Delcy Rodriguez any guarantees in exchange for cooperating
No,
with your
No, but she's cooperating.
Are you going to demand free and fair elections in the short term in Venezuela?
Well, it depends on, what you're talking. We have to do one thing in Venezuela, bring it back. It's a dead country right now. It's a country that, frankly, we would have been, if I had lost the election, we would have been a dead country. We would have been Venezuela on steroids. Venezuela right now is a dead country. We have to bring it back, and we're going to have big investments by the oil companies to bring back the infrastructure. And the oil companies are ready to go. They're going to go in, they're going to rebuild the infrastructure. We built it to start off with many years ago. They took it away. You can't do that. And you can't do that with me. They did it with other presidents.
How soon do you think an election can take place in Venezuela? How soon can an election take place?
Well, I think we're looking more at getting it fixed, getting it ready first, because it's a mess. The country is a mess. It's been horribly run. The oil is just flowing at a very low level, much lower than, even if it was badly run, it should have more income, more oil than what they're doing. So we're going to have the big oil companies go in, and they're going to fix the infrastructure, and they're going to invest money. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country. We're going to cherish the country. We're going to take care, more importantly, of the people, including Venezuelans that are living in our country that were forced to leave their country. And they're going to be taken very good care of. Yes, ma'am.
Have you spoken with the oil companies about
Yes.
going into Venezuela?
I have.
Which ones? Have you received any commitments?
All of them, basically.
Any commitments from the oil companies?
They want to go in so badly.
Did you speak with them before the operation took place?
Yes.
Did you maybe tick them off that one?
Before and after. And they want to go in, and they're going to do a great job for the people of Venezuela. And they're going to represent us well.
What happens
But
to
the infrastructure is rusty, rotten, most of it unusable. It's old, it's broken. You see pipes laying all over the ground. Nothing's been invested for years. Chevron's in, as you know, they've done a good job, but even they haven't been in a position to invest money because they're at a month-to-month basis.
What happens to the
They're only there because I wanted them to be there.
Yeah, are there any contingencies in case that the military in Venezuela is unhappy with the U.S. and way it's running Venezuela? Do you guys have plans for anything?
So Venezuela thus far has been very nice, but it helps to have a force like we have. We were ready for a second wave. We were all set to go, but we don't think we're going to need it.
There's about 17 billion worth of oil reserves in Venezuela.
More.
Is that going to be?
You mean trillion?
And is that going to be
Did you
something?
say billion or trillion?
I said billion.
You said 17 billion? It's much more than that.
Okay, so what is going to happen to those reserves?
Well, we're going to run everything. We're going to run it, fix it. We'll have elections at the right time. The main thing you have to fix, it's a broken country. There's no money. There's inflation. Like we would have had, if I didn't win this election, we would have been Venezuela on steroids. Lindsay would know that. You might say something on that because we were talking before. We would have had a doubling up of very bad things that cost us a lot of money, like welfare, frankly. We wouldn't have had jobs. And instead of having $18 trillion in, we would have had at least $5 to $10 trillion leaving the country. So our costs would have gone up, and all of the money we're setting a record. It's long broken. And that's it. That's after 10 months. We haven't included the 11th month yet. So we think we're going to hit over $20 trillion. The all-time record is 3 by another country known as China. About 10 years ago, they did 3. We're going to do close to 20 trillion. By the way, there has never been anything like this ever before. And it's all because of tariffs and the election, but it's because of tariffs.
There was a time.
Without tariffs, we wouldn't have 10 cents being invested.
There was a time back in 2016, I remember your RNC speech, and you were saying that regime change and nation building.
Where?
When you were speaking at the RNC back in 2016,
Go ahead, what did I say?
You were criticizing regime change and nation building, the U.S. being involved in that. It seems obviously that your stance has changed on that. What led to that? And is the U.S. nation building now? Is that
This isn't a country that's on the other side of the world. This isn't a country like we have to travel 24 hours in an airplane. This is Venezuela. It's in our area. The Don Road Doctrine.
So is that what you would say, that we're in the business of nation building now?
We're in the business of having countries around us that are viable and successful, and where the oil is allowed to freely come out because that's good. It gets the prices down. That's good for our country. Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor. And that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long.
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
it sounds good to me.
Secretary Rubio mentioned.
You know why? Because they kill a lot of people. Yeah.
Secretary Rubio mentioned Cuba yesterday in his remarks. Does the U.S. have a plan to do something?
Well, Cuba always survived because of Venezuela. Now they won't have that money coming in. They won't have the income coming in. You know, a lot of Cubans were killed yesterday. You know that. A lot of Cubans were killed.
Do you know how many?
The bodyguards. No, they're looking, but there was a lot of death on the other side. No death on our side. But there was a lot of death on the other side, unfortunately. But a lot of Cubans were killed yesterday, trying to protect him.
There's been protesters killed in Iran. You said we were locked and loaded, ready to go. What is the line there for when the U.S. is going to get involved in those protests?
We'll take a look. We're watching it very closely. If they start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States.
Can I just add something? So when he first got elected in January.
Okay, so I'll stop it right there because, again, I wanted to catch the thing I wanted to catch, which I believe they did talk about, because, again, it's a long 30 minutes. I don't want to subject you all to it. The question the reporter asked was, did you inform the oil companies before you went in? To which he said, yeah. Think about that for a second. You did not inform the Democrats of your plan. Chances are you may have not informed the Republicans of your plan, but you informed the oil companies that, he hinted at it, as he said. He said he hinted. Let's be honest. He told them, we're going in. Venezuela's oil infrastructure needs work. Chevron's already there. Who else wants a piece? And I guarantee that's what and again, this is why I said stocks. Look at Exxon, BP, look at all of them. Tell me if you don't believe. I'm like, believe it or not, them stocks will rise, because you don't think, big oil is not going to look at Venezuela like, hey, gold mine. Let's move our people in there, protected by American soldiers, redo this infrastructure the way we want to, and move this oil out the way we want to. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are seeing is pillage and plunder described as being disguised as the war on drugs. And nothing is being done about the drugs, because the war on drugs is bullshit. What Taco just did, and with the Republicans' blessing, is occupy a country, and you're trying to dress it up as we are providing Venezuelans freedom. I will go ahead and tell you off the bat, because apparently some people have short memories. When's the last time Taco has done something positive that has actually helped people and has not enriched himself? Because last time I checked, he's still the only man to bankrupt a casino. How do you bankrupt a casino? Ask Taco. He did it. Even more so, Lindsey Graham jumped in, Taco's favorite ass-kissing cheerleader, pardon my French, when the question came up about Cuba. Because, guys, remember what I sat there and said earlier? There's a dangerous precedent that Taco just did. That if one country with enough power, enough personnel, enough armament decides that another country is not going to the beat that they want, they can just go ahead and change things. So with that being said, he decided to look at Cuba. And this is where the cheerleader decided to step in and, does what he does best when his lips are not firmly planted on Taco's ass.
We had Venezuela, we have Cuba, we have Colombia in our backyard. And these three countries have been condemned ever since I've been in politics. Joe Biden put a $25 million bounty on Maduro's head. Chris Smith, today he got inaugurated, said, I hope Trump will hold Maduro's feet to the fire. You did. So what has he done? He's going to clear our backyard of a drug caliphate, countries run by narco-terrorist dictators who murder, rape, send drugs into our country to kill thousands of our citizens. To my Democratic friends, you should be celebrating this. When bin Laden went down, I was the first to applaud President Obama. This was one of the most sophisticated military operations in the history of the country. What they were able to do was amazing. They knew we were coming. We had a good part of the Navy, and they were able to capture this man alive. No military in the world could have done it. And as to this commander-in-chief, he did something people talked about doing. You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered. We're going to wake up one day, I hope in 26, in our backyard, we're going to have allies in these countries doing business with America, not narco-terrorist dictators killing Americans. This is a big frigging day. And everybody in the world is thinking differently than they were just a few days ago because of what you did.
Oh man. You know, I guess if you're going to be an ass kisser, be the biggest, best ass kisser you could possibly be, Lindsey Graham. Also, fun fact, Lindsey Graham was not the first person to congratulate President Obama for the operation that unalived bin Laden. He was informed by Vice President Joe Biden via a phone call. He relayed to the vice president his congratulations to President Obama. So for all those that are like, wait a second, that don't sound right. Yeah, it's bullshit. He wasn't the first, which I find amazing. But what is scary, guys, is that they're now calling out other countries. But here's the funny thing. You can call it Cuba all you want to, but Cuba's a communist country. Well, yeah. And you are now deciding that the military force needs to go liberate Cuba. Here's my question. When are you going to go after Mexico? When are you going to go after Russia? When are you going to go after North Korea? You know, because they all quote unquote oppress their citizens, their constituents. North Korea is probably the biggest state-run government. I don't see you rushing to liberate them. Mexico has cartels. I don't see you going to take care of them. You won't go near Russia because Putin has basically got you as his power bottom. So I know you're not going nowhere near there. But it is amazing to me that you, again, Taco being a pedo convict, now wants to go after Cuba because Lindsey Graham is too busy kissing his ass and probably doing a lot of other things I can't say on this show. But trying to now, again, warmongering. And I've never understood that all this, because and I guess I really shouldn't be surprised, guys, because we've seen how low. It's like we keep thinking Taco can't go any lower. And he does. He finds a new subterranean level. Venezuela is not going to be any of it. Venezuela should have been beyond impeachable. This guy needs to go. But also, the entire Republican elected Congress needs to go. Because I have yet to see, at the time of recording this podcast, I have yet to see one Republican sit there and shout out like this is wrong. Several Democrats, Chuck Schumer, which again, not surprising that Chuck Schumer is not immediately, downing this, although he should, because Democrats should say with one united voice, we don't agree with this. But Chuck Schumer being Chuck Schumer, well, we weren't informed. And because we weren't informed, we're just going to have to deal with it. Which is why I said that moderate Dems need to go because they're no different than Republicans. But for all those that are, for all those red hats and MAGA hats that are basically praising, oh, we're going to get oil, gas is going to be down back to under $1. yeah, let me just play this and just bring you back to reality.
Let's focus now on what all of this could mean for your bottom line. NBC's senior business correspondent Christine Roman's here looking at the potential impact on things like oil and gas. Christine, good morning. Of course, we should preface it. It's very early.
Yeah.
This just happened a few days ago, but the president says he wants U.S. oil companies to basically run the oil operation in Venezuela. In the short term, what could that mean for consumers, if anything?
Well, look, in the short term, you've got this uncertainty, which could actually push up oil prices a little bit. You're seeing them up a little bit overnight, but there are so many questions, you guys. We don't know what the plan is. We don't know what happens next. We don't know when and if those American oil companies are going to go in there. Chevron already is operating inside the country. But as you know, Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserve in the world, but right now is only pushing out like 1% of the oil we use because of so many problems for so many decades in that country. So whatever happens next is going to take years. You know, analysts this weekend were telling me if everything goes perfectly, like starting tomorrow, you had these investments in the country, it could take 5 to 7 years to be getting meaningful amounts of oil out of Venezuela, 5 to 7 years. So in the near term, the risk is that all of this uncertainty maybe drives up oil prices a little bit. And one analyst this weekend said you could see oil prices rise maybe $3 a barrel. That would be less than 10 cents a gallon for gas. We're coming off a very good time for gas prices. Look at last year. It was a very stable and declining year for gas prices. So the backdrop here is good for American drivers and consumers.
Well, some Americans are certainly worried about inflation. So on that note, how does all of this impact what we pay for other items?
Yeah, the longer term would be maybe gas prices, very long term, would start to drift lower if you've got Venezuela pumping a lot of oil. But there are questions over the weekend about how this fits in to the president's strategy to lower prices if you're raising all of this uncertainty in the region. And a lot of parallels being drawn to Iraq and Libya, where the United States said it was going to get in there, it was going to fix a big problem and going to be able to exploit that oil. And that didn't really turn out that way. Let's see what happens.
And the same thing is going to happen here. I don't know why folks think that, oh, well, we got Venezuela. That means gas prices are going to be down. No. Gas prices are not going to be down. Because keep in mind what she just said. Venezuela's infrastructure is going to take at least 5 to 7 years to get up to speed. At the same time, y'all are assuming that the president controls gas prices. As we have said multiple times on this podcast, he doesn't. OPEC does. So the relief that you hope to see that gas will ever get back down to under $2 to or under $1, suffice to say it's not going to happen because big oil is a dwindling infrastructure with a finite amount of time, and they are trying to run out the clock by basically absorbing every oil-filled resource that they can. And Venezuela is just the biggest one on the map right now. So I'm suffice to say, whether you're seeing $2 or $3 or maybe $4 at the gallon, it's not changing anytime soon. But hey, oil companies can still record record profits even though you are paying more at the pump. Got to love greedy ass companies. Just saying. But the last thing I'll say before we move on to the next subject is, again, Taco sat there and said something that a lot of people need to pay attention to when it comes to the midterms.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. We don't impeach them. You know why? Because they're meaner than we are. We should have impeached Joe Biden for 100 different things. They are mean and smart, but fortunately for you, they have horrible policy. They can be smart as.
So I'm going to stop it right there just because the man sat there and said, if you don't win the midterms, the Democrats are going to impeach me. Here's the thing. I've said many times on the show that with the current year, now in year 2 of Trump's considered his second term, Democrats have all the ammo in the world to spend last year and now this year, which hopefully last year should prove something, especially with certain swing states turning blue, especially in some special elections. But again, Democrats have all the ammo in the world they need for the midterms this November. Why? Because Taco says, well, they're going to impeach me for something. Dude, you have at least 10 different things out there that you could be impeached for. And that's just off the top of my head. But Venezuela is definitely number one. The fact that you pardon terrorists, number two. Consider the fact that the war on drugs, he just pardoned a guy who literally was moving kilos of cocaine. And I forgot the guy's name already, but again, he's already pardoned a drug kingpin. So the war on drugs in Trump's administration is bullshit. But getting back to the midterms, if the Democrats are somehow able, and I said somehow, because what should have happened last election with the Madam VP at the time should have been an effing landslide. Should have been. But, Biden didn't drop out until like 6 or 7 months to go. I mean, Harris tried to run the best campaign she could with the limited amount of time that she had. And again, you had a whole bunch of idiots who would rather vote for a red hat or not vote at all because they didn't like Harris. Or the simple fact of the matter is they couldn't stomach a woman being president, let alone a black woman. The thing I'm getting at here is, guys, with this midterms coming up, yeah, Taco's worried somewhat, because if the Democrats do get majority in the House, do get majority in the Senate, they could push for an impeachment, which again, Taco understands. And I say this, what Taco understands, guys, is that the presidency is his immunity. I hate to say that, but it's true. The presidency is his immunity. It's what's holding it. His cases are going, all his federal cases, except the ones he convicted on, slowly going away, or, being handed off to prosecutors whose job is to bury the case, and I can keep going. But he's still convicted. He's still a convicted felon because of mortgage fraud. He still has that amount that he has to pay, still on bond, that's still accruing interest right now. He'll never get away from those things. But his election tampering case in Georgia, gone. His document case that he had against the FBI while in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, gone. So, with that being said, they could come after him for war crimes. But unfortunately, the opinion of the Department of Justice is they will not indict a sitting president. And as long as Pam Bondi is his lapdog, she might as well be his personal lawyer with power. What Pam Bondi basically is William Barr if William Barr had listened to Taco. That's basically what she is. So, if they do move forward in the midterms, yes, they could go with impeachment. But this depends on the Democrats. It depends on Democrats, and it depends on them having a united front. I also said the Democrats need to be more progressive, and you need to let women lead. Chuck Schumer needs to step down. Nancy Pelosi is already on her way out. And every other moderate Democrat needs to step down. For the Democrats to win, you need to be ultra progressive. You have to be, because people are tired of the moderates. People are tired of centrists. They want to actually feel relief, and you cannot do that unless you go progressive. So we will see. But like Taco said, if the midterms come and the Democrats are on the high side, yeah, the first thing they could do when they're sworn in as the next Congress is move for impeachment. And it should make for a fun show. But we'll see. But they're talking about protests, and this is the one that killed me. Imagine you are protesting, and in the middle of the protest, you are arrested. Nothing new. I just think what this young lady was protesting and how she got arrested, well, that's a side of bullshit.
We'll learn more about what led up to the arrest of a protest organizer over the weekend after a rally against the U.S.'s actions in Venezuela. It all happened while our camera was rolling immediately after an interview with 13 on Your Side. 13 on Your Side's Kelly Lichter spoke with that woman tonight about what happened. Kelly.
Julia, Jessica Plicta says she was disappointed but not surprised as she was cuffed in the back of a GRPD cruiser because she says protesters getting arrested is not new in Grand Rapids.
Just moments after an interview with 13 on Your Side.
And as soon as the light to the camera shut off, two police officers came up behind me and said, "Put your hands on your head, you're under arrest."
I am not resisting arrest.
No, you're not resisting
I'm not resisting arrest. I'm going peacefully.
Organizer Jessica Plichta was arrested for failure to obey a lawful order of a police officer after marching in the streets of Grand Rapids against U.S. actions in Venezuela on January 3rd.
They had me bend over the police car, they patted me down, removed my belongings, and then they put me back in the police car without buckling my seatbelt and drove me to Kent County Sheriff's Office, I believe. The jail.
Plichta says she was held there for 3 hours before being released.
I wasn't surprised, just disappointed.
She says she chose to remain silent after her arrest, but doesn't understand why GRPD has a large presence at these protests.
Why is Grand Rapids seem to be the only city in Michigan where protesting is illegal? I believe it's our sacred right in this country to protest.
We reached out to the city of Grand Rapids to ask what the penalties are for these charges and if it's city policy to arrest people who violate those city charges. A spokesperson for the city sent us back several city code sections that apply to pedestrians walking or standing in the roadway and policy on failure to obey a lawful command. In a statement to 13 on Your Side, a spokesperson for the Grand Rapids Police Department says protesters refused over 25 announcements from a cruiser's PA system to get off the road, and, quote, patrol officers consulted with their sergeant and the watch commander, who informed the officers that if the individuals could be located, they were subject to arrest. The adult woman who was arrested was positively identified by officers, and the lawful arrest was made. Plichta says this shouldn't deter people from taking to the streets.
People will claim that a street march is horrible, but you know what? A street march, a peaceful march in the streets is far more peaceful when the world is escalating violence at a drastic rate.
She says she is awaiting notification of her official charges.
So what's so crazy about this is the level, and again, y'all know how I feel about law enforcement. I have sit there and said many times on the show that I have next to nothing no love for law enforcement. But I just think the fact that this was some weak ass sauce to find something. Well, will people protest all the time, and sometimes they occupy streets, and sometimes they block traffic, and folks have to get around it. What do you think protests are? Protests are not meant to be comforting. They are meant to shock you. They are meant to get your attention. They're meant to get up in your face. They are meant to grab your attention. If people are protesting off the side of the street, 9 times out of 10, people don't pay attention. If protesters are walking in the street, they now have your attention. And they're not doing it maliciously. To protest is to make people uncomfortable, but it's also to make people listen. At the same time, these are people who protest against Venezuela because, yes, our president, unfortunately committed a war crime. And all they were simply saying was, we do not sanction this. This is not, well, this is, I know a lot of people may have not voted for Trump, but it comes down to the whole, like, this is not what we signed up for. So I don't get where law enforcement, especially so they said, well, this title, they find reasons. And this is law enforcement. Law enforcement dodges accountability like an NBA player doing a paternity test. They always, it's like, well, we don't know what to do. You could let them pass, like you let Nazi protesters pass, like you let those that passed off paraphernalia about bigotry and things of that nature. I didn't ever see them get arrested for. I never saw their protests be interrupted or arrested. Hell, they're protected. I remember here in Nashville 3 years ago, Nazi protesters marched downtown untouched, but Metro was watching them. Well, we were just making sure for the sake of you protected the protesters, even though they were being disturbing. But Will, you just sat there and said protests are meant to get your attention. They're meant to not comfort. You're not meant to be comforted. Here's the thing. If you march wearing Nazi gear or Nazi-like garments in a country that fought you guys, I expect you to get your ass beat, because that's sending a message. You can protest all you want, but once you decide you're a Nazi, you get treated like one. That, my friends, is equality. But again, I'm just going back to the whole thing about law enforcement, where it's a bullshit thing to arrest protesters because that's the risk. The risk isn't all. The risk of it all is, guys, is just that when you protest, law enforcement is not there to protect you because, let's be honest, they do kind of favor the other side. Don't believe me? There was a protest to where Nazis were about to enter a black neighborhood, and the black neighborhood was not about to have it. What did the police do? Form a barricade, form a protective shield in front of the Nazi people, keeping the black residents at bay. Where the guy sat there and said, you're protecting them. You really need to be on our side. And that tells you everything you want to know. I wish I actually pulled that video up because, again, that speaks volumes. But this is what makes protesting. And I still say you should protest. Exercise the right to protest. But at the same time, guys, when it comes to law enforcement, know the laws in your city and state because they're basically betting on your ignorance. Just saying. But a few more things, guys. Like I said, I know we spent a lot on Venezuela, but other things that you guys should be aware of, especially where it comes to the newest state news station, CBS. Because, as we said before, CBS is under new management because the CEO of CBS wanted Skydance, and in order to get Skydance, the price they paid was to kiss Taco's ass. Hence why we have a new CBS editor-in-chief who has basically watered down everything, including the CBS Evening News, to which this man, Tony Dokoupil, gave the most Fox-like answer, but I'll let him speak for himself.
A lot has changed since the first person sat in this chair, but for me, the biggest difference is people do not trust us like they used to. And it's not just us, it's all of legacy media. And I get it. I get it because I've been hearing about it from just about everybody for more than 20 years as I've traveled America on this assignment or that. My mom's neighbors in West Virginia, my own neighbors in New York City, thousands and thousands of conversations in between. Sometimes people want to talk to me about our coverage of NAFTA or the Iraq War. Other times it's all about Hillary Clinton's emails or Russiagate. Or more recently, COVID lockdowns, Hunter Biden's laptop, or the president's fitness for office. The point is, on too many stories, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American. Or we put too much weight in the analysis of academics or elites and not enough on you. And I know this because at certain points, I have been you. I have felt this way too. I felt like what I was seeing and hearing on the news didn't reflect what I was seeing and hearing in my own life, and that the most urgent questions simply weren't being asked. So here's my promise to you today and every time you see me in this chair. You come first, not advertisers, not politicians, not corporate interests. And yes, that does include the corporate owners of CBS. I report for you, which means I tell you what I know, when I know it, and how I know it. And when I get it wrong, I'll tell you that too. It also means I'm going to talk to everybody and hold everyone in public life to the very same standard. After all, I became a journalist to talk to people. I love talking to people about what works in this country, what doesn't, and not only what should change, but the good ideas that should never change. I think telling the truth is one of them. I'm Tony Dokoupil, the anchor of the CBS Evening News.
Ah, that is so sweet. He's actually not wearing a jacket, but he's got a tie on to let you know, hey, I'm professional, but I'm also impersonable. And I love the fact that it's like, okay, well, make me earn it. Don't just trust me, make me earn it. Well, Tony Dokoupil, I'm sorry if I just completely destroy your name. You did have a chance to prove it, but we're not surprised because you had a chance to basically hold never sober Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on the whole thing with Maduro and Venezuela. And well, we really shouldn't be surprised.
country of Venezuela temporarily. He referred to the officials standing there behind him at the podium. And one of those officials joins us now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us. I want to begin tonight with the soldiers and sailors involved in this. We're very happy. Thank you again. We are very happy to hear that there was no loss of American life in this mission. And I understand you're just back from Joint Base Andrews, where you met with some of the team members involved in all of this. How are they doing? And you were watching this unfold. What did you see?
I saw the best of America. I saw men and women dedicating their lives to defending our country and to accomplishing that mission. And I just landed here at Joint Base Andrews, had a chance to meet a lot of them firsthand who were involved, walk through the TikTok of what can only be described as the most sophisticated, most complicated, most successful joint special operations raid of all time. I mean, nothing of this size scope when you actually unpack what was done kinetically and non-kinetically, that many people, that many moving parts, that consequential, and they got the job done. And despite any obstacles in front of them, it is incredible to be able to serve such courageous, brave, and skilled Americans. We maybe do right by them, and President Trump did. He gave them a clear mission, and they finished it.
He teases the peace. So, yeah, he didn't even try. I'm like, dude, you didn't even try. That was the question. And here's the thing. Again, that's from Jesse Dollarmore, which, again, highly recommend to watch him as well if you hadn't had a chance to. But the thing about it is, guys, he didn't follow up with a question. It was more like, well, we're going to praise him. Let's praise him because, again, that's our new job. And this is why I hate it for CBS. I hate it for CBS News because CBS News for the longest time used to be the gold standard of journalism. 60 Minutes, award-winning journalism. At the same time, it's only because a greedy-ass CEO and Taco saw it as an opportunity that, hey, I'm going to sue 60 Minutes for an interview that had nothing to do with me. And because the CEO wanted Skydance, a deal was made, 60 Minutes was gutted, and CBS has now become the new Fox News. Why are we freaking surprised at this point? But at the same time, it's disheartening because now it's just like, what's next? Because as we said before, a handful of CEOs own most of the media, and that alone is a scary thought because they can't control what's in there and out there. Hence the reason why independent journalism is so important. Shows like mine and others out there are basically doing it without corporate influence because, again, I never wanted to be the point to where someone who, if this show ever does get endorsed for things of that nature, I wouldn't complain. But I also don't want the leash that comes with the money. You can't talk about this. You can't do that. You can't criticize them. You can't hold them feet to the fire. You can't fact check them. I don't need that because you don't need that. At the same time, CBS used to be that. And I still think a lot of people that call themselves journalists need to fact check and hold everybody equally to the fire. Unfortunately, as long as Barry Weiss is at CBS, she answers to Taco and she will diminish, destroy, and pretty much neuter, I guess for the better explanation of a word, anything that CBS tries to do. So yes, CBS News has now become Fox News. You have went from being informative and investigating to entertaining and ass kissing. Bravo. But the other thing we do want to talk about, guys, that also happened over the weekend. See, this is why I know I just got to talk about independent journalists. What happened in Minnesota was a goddamn cluster F. And again, if you weren't paying attention, this all was surrounding the fact of an overzealous Charlie Kirk douchebag wannabe. But because he's white, because he goes after people of color, and he does so trying to make them seem like the criminals, got him immediate stardom. Let's start with the first story, shall we?
Tonight, the Department of Homeland Security says it is knocking on doors at more than 30 businesses in Minneapolis.
to root out those that may be collecting taxpayer money fraudulently.
That's just a simple question. Where are the children?
It comes after a viral video made by a right-wing YouTuber reignited interest in the issue. The video posted by Nick Shirley, who identifies himself as an independent journalist, focused on the area's Somali community, and has racked up more than 100 million views. Shirley says he went to 10 child care centers receiving federal and state subsidies and found no children inside. NBC News has reached out to Shirley about the timing of the visits, but he has not responded.
These buildings should be operating as they're receiving literally millions of dollars.
While we have questions about some of the methods that were used in the video, we do take the concerns that the video raises about fraud very seriously.
The Minnesota Commissioner of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families said today many of the centers have been investigated previously, and no fraud was uncovered. 8 of the 10 daycare centers featured in the video are still operating and receiving taxpayer subsidies, according to the commissioner.
Which is why our teams are out today making additional unannounced visits to, again, confirm, are there children in these child care centers?
The video stoking Republican anger towards the state's Democratic governor, Tim Walz, who they blame for not doing more to crack down. The governor's office in a statement saying the governor has worked for years to crack down on fraud and asked the state legislature for more authority to take aggressive action. The Justice Department under both Biden and Trump have launched multiple investigations into alleged fraud in Minneapolis. In Washington, FBI Director Kash Patel said his agency has surged personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota to dismantle large-scale fraud schemes. Julia Ainsley.
So I want to stop it right there for that reason, because this all started because one Charlie Kirk-like douchebag named Nick Shirley. And this is the part where a lot of people seem to miss this. This guy, supposedly an independent investigative journalist, decided to basically track down people of color's daycare centers and basically sat there and said, hey, I want to see if you got kids in here. And it is amazing to me that no one has went, whoa, he's not a parent. He doesn't have kids here. Why the frack is this man? Why is he trying to get into locations to do what? He has no credentials. He's not with law enforcement. He's not with the Department of Human Services. He has no right to be on these grounds and to ask us whether or not we have kids here. But again, when it comes to the right side, number one, conservatives are effing idiots. Don't believe me? They already, because these people are people of color. These are these Somali people that he did target Somali business, Somali daycare centers, learning centers, and try to sit there and say these people are profiting millions from the state and they have no kids. Well, it's not your job to investigate that. You're not with the city. You're not with the state. You're not with child services in any capacity. But you, because you have a camera, you have mics, and you have idiots that'll gladly go along with you to be tough and intimidating, are knocking on these doors and saying, we want to see if you have children here. How is it that folks do not see this as a security risk? That you're going to let a stranger come into a facility with kids so they can validate if you have kids? Look, my family has owned daycare centers. And if you had asked an administrator or an educator or a teacher to, hey, would you let a complete stranger in just so they can verify if kids are in there? You will get the quickest hell no and F no ever, because that's a security breach. And at the same time, if I'm the parent of those children that I send to that learning center and I find out that learning center has let a stranger in close proximity to my child would not be going to that learning center anymore. But again, this whole thing always comes to people of color. Even Taco himself called out Representative Ilhan Omar over that. Because again, his whole thing about attacking people of color. Remember a long time ago, the shithole countries and the fact of, we're trying to do a travel ban on people that have come from these countries and things of that nature. It's just him. It's Taco reviewing the greatest hits. But that's not the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg, folks, is that a person could sit there and can make an allegation, and in doing so, cause this to happen.
The Trump administration has confirmed it's freezing billions of dollars in money for childcare and other social services because of fraud concerns. Now, multiple states are affected. ABC's Christiane Cordero has the details. Christiane, good morning.
Sophie, good morning. 5 Democrat-led states are affected by this move, but daycares from Texas to West Virginia say they're worried any delay in funding could force them to close their doors. This morning, the Trump administration says it's cutting off $10 billion in funding for childcare and social services in 5 Democrat-led states. Administration officials tell the New York Post the freeze is over concern that benefits were fraudulently funneled to non-citizens. Funds are being suspended in California, Colorado, Illinois, New York, and Minnesota. The programs help subsidize childcare for low-income families and provide cash assistance for the poor. The move comes days after the administration said it would pause childcare funding to all 50 states, with funds being released only when states prove they are being spent legitimately. The 5 states named yesterday are being asked to provide attendance records and inspection reports. Some facilities in Minnesota could face even more requirements.
The state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars.
A video posted last month by a right-wing influencer claimed several Minnesota daycares receiving public funds were not actually providing childcare. The video focused on daycares in the Somali community. State authorities have investigated the allegations for years and say investigators have been sent to 9 centers referenced in that video last month, and children were present at all except one, which was closed for the day. Still, the Trump administration is ramping up enforcement. Up to 2,000 federal agents could be headed to the Minneapolis area to conduct immigration and fraud investigations. And now, new political fallout. Minnesota's Democratic governor, former vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, is dropping his bid for re-election.
Every minute that I spend defending my own political interest would be a minute I can't spend defending the people of Minnesota against the criminals who prey on our generosity and the cynics who want to prey on our differences.
Think about that for a second, guys. Think about that for 1 second. This one idiot with one accusation, and everybody believed it. Scratch that. Everybody with a position of power believed it. Even so much more. Let's just look at that map for a second. He cut funding in California, Colorado, Minnesota, Illinois, and New York. Coincidentally enough, all Democratic states, all considered blue states. He didn't cut it in Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas. He didn't cut it in those areas. But why? Because Taco is an idiot. But it didn't help that an idiot who calls himself a journalist decided to make an accusation that led to child care and social services funding being suspended in other states that he's not a part of. But again, Taco wants to sit there and say, well, there's rampant fraud. How many more times, and I'm going to be completely honest about this, how many more times are we going to listen to Republicans talk about fraud, waste, and abuse? And every time they bring it up, none is found. None is found. The mountains of fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare and Medicaid and in Obamacare, it is amazing to me that every time a conservative brings up fraud, waste, and abuse, and when it's time to show evidence, there's not shit to be found. Not shit. Even more so to where the latest of this area, guys, because remember, again, Nick Shirley tried to accuse that there were certain groups out there, people of color, Somalians, that own businesses that were frauding the state. Well, the Minnesota Department of Children, Youth, and Families said it visited the 9 facilities that Nick Surley looked at and found them operating as expected. So let's get this straight for a second. Will Nick Surley actually produce evidence? He won't. Will he actually apologize for accusing? He won't. Because for the simple fact of the matter, guys, Nick Surley is now become the next media darling of the right wing. They will sit there and say they praise him for his bravery and that his nonstop seeking justice and actually doing the right, for reporting the right thing in journalism. He'll make the rounds on Fox News. I guarantee it. He'll be on Newsmax. He'll be somewhere. Hell, he might even show up at CPAC. He might show up at the next Republican convention, receiving heaps of praise. Erica Kirk may actually stop doing a line and actually give him a celebratory comment saying, Charlie would have loved you. All this while. Why? Oh, why are you saying all this? I'm saying this because the man has learned what every other right-wing considered rising star has learned. You can grift the hatred off of idiots and you can make yourself freaking rich. Because hate profiting, you can grift off hate. Charlie Kirk did it for years. So did Ben Shapiro. So did Bill O'Reilly. So did Tucker Carlson. So did Sean O'Handy. So did Laura Ingraham. Megyn Kelly, with her 20 million plus out of her settlement with NBC, sits there from her podcast telling Black people to get over their melanin, while she claims sexual harassment at Fox News and they paid her to shut up. What I'm getting at here is, folks, is all Nick Surley has learned is that, I accuse people of color of defrauding the government. Dumbass white people will listen to me because I'm white. And if that doesn't scream nationalism and bigotry go hand in hand, nothing will. But again, Nick Surley, if you ever do hear or watch this podcast, you, sir, are what's wrong with journalism. And if you cannot back it up with facts, please kindly sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. Please and thank you. Moving right along, guys. A couple more stories before we do go to our feel good segment. Thank you for rocking with me. But this one was good because, again, the Kennedy Center, which Taco has made himself chairman, removed people, installed his own people, to which they tried to actually add his name to the actual established honorary place. Well, musicians usually scheduled to play there. Not anymore. And yeah, Big Baby isn't happy.
With the growing fallout involving the Kennedy Center and President Trump's push to leave his mark on that cultural institution, you've got more artists now pulling out of scheduled events, including the Cookers. They're a jazz band. They were set to perform a couple of concerts on New Year's Eve, but they've now joined a growing list of artists backing out. That latest wave coming after the Trump-appointed board voted unanimously to rename the center the Donald J. Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, as you see there. The president's name added to the building earlier this month. I want to bring in our White House correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor, who's joining us now. Okay, Yamiche, this has been a thing that has been building for a bit now. Let's start with the latest and the Cookers, this jazz group. What are they saying about this decision to back out?
Well, interestingly, this group, the Cookers, they're not saying in particular that this is tied to the name change of the building, but they're essentially saying that the atmosphere has been one that they don't want to perform in. I want to read to you part of their statement. They say jazz was born from struggle and from a relentless insistence on freedom of thought, of expression, and of the full human voice. Some of us have been making this music for many decades, and that history still shapes us. They go on to say, our hope is that this moment will leave space for reflection, not resentment. So again, not specifically saying that the president's actions are what's causing them to cancel these concerts, but essentially hinting at that, Hallie.
And Yamiche, it's not just the Cookers, right? I mean, you look at, I think there was a run at Hamilton, for example, that ended up getting 86th basically by them. And when you look at the bigger picture, the Kennedy Center has typically and traditionally, as you well know, having lived and covered DC for so long, been pretty nonpartisan.
That's right. Even though President Trump, if you ask him, he would say that the Kennedy Center was sort of biased against conservatives. But for the most part, people have said that this is a nonpartisan performing arts center that welcomed all sorts of performances. But the president essentially was saying that the building was getting too liberal and was too welcoming, essentially, to performances and people that he didn't agree with. And now we've seen this fallout. We've seen ticket sales go down. We've seen people canceling performances. We've also seen people just simply uncomfortable with the building. And let's remember that this renaming really is the renaming of a memorial. This isn't just sort of the Capitol Arena, which is where sports teams play. This is a memorial that was dedicated to John F. Kennedy Jr., someone who, of course, was killed while serving our country, murdered while serving our country. So the Kennedy family has been very outspoken, very angry about this. And you now see these artists that are either hinting or full on saying that they don't want to be in this space because of President Trump.
And what about this, some of the stuff that's happened with the website, the newly renamed center?
Well, Hallie, of course, it's a little bit of a troll here. This former South Park writer, because the president had been talking and hinting at the idea that he might rename the Performing Arts Center, this person actually purchased both TrumpKennedyCenter.org and TrumpKennedyCenter.com. So there's literally a comedian that owns these websites, so they can't change the name of the website right now, at least not into those two. And then if we can show people the homepage of TrumpKennedyCenter.org, if you look up there, there's the red and there's all this, and it maybe kind of looks like a regular website. But when you scroll down, the website says the next events at the Trump Kennedy Center are to ring in the new year with a performance by the, quote, Epstein dancers. That, of course, being a reference to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who, of course, has had a lot of controversy. The president has been tied to him just as a friend. He has not been charged with any wrongdoing. He has been accused of any wrongdoing. But the fact that the Epstein files are something that's mentioned on this website really is just trolling President Trump. So it really is in some ways a reminder that as this was all building, there were people that were very much against this, that were making their own kind of moves. Hallie.
Yamiche, thank you.
But it is pretty funny, though, the fact that the Epstein dancers, and yeah, it's funny, so far, Epstein files ain't got mentioned this much, which coincidentally was at the time that the Venezuela attack happened, was a deadline that the Department of Justice had to give for the reason for not releasing all the files. I'm not playing conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying it's a hell of a distraction. But with the Kennedy Center, yes, people are pulling out. And only because, well, Taco decided, like most things, he wants his name on it because he wants to leave his skid marks all over history. So I just find it funny where, hopefully performing at his center, the Epstein dancers, which again, still funny that, hasn't been mentioned at all this week. But great stuff. Also, what is so funny, although this is almost considered a feel-good moment, but really it isn't, because that's how I feel about the Department of Homeland Security, the Gestapo ICE. It is amazing how the right to refuse service is always acknowledged until white people realize it can be used against them. Enter DHS agents and Hilton, or I should say an independent branch of Hilton Hotels, deciding to cancel reservations. I call doing the Lord's work.
Department of Homeland Security is accusing Hilton Hotels of canceling reservations for federal agents in Minnesota. Hilton says the hotel in question, though, is owned and operated by a separate independent company. DHS says it received an email from the hotel saying they are not allowing immigration or ICE agents to stay on their property. The hotel has since apologized, saying the cancellation violates its policy of being a welcoming place for all.
Does it, though? I mean, but still, the fact of the matter is they do have the right to refuse service. And just like in Chicago, Chicago would not serve nor allow DHS or ICE agents to use their bathrooms and would not serve them food. You have the right to refuse service. And it's funny where most white folks go, well, they do have the right to refuse service until that right attacks you. I don't feel bad about that. Almost like I said, comical. So the last story we got before we get to our feel good segment, guys. Unfortunately, RFK has decided to institute a new alignment of a shot schedule for children, and you should be concerned a lot.
Department of Health and Human Services is overhauling the immunization schedule for children. The new proposed immunization schedule breaks up vaccines into 3 categories: vaccines for all children, vaccines for those who are at high risk, and vaccines based on shared clinical decision making, which means doctors and parents can decide what's best based on a child's health history. Joining us now is NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Dr. Azar, good to see you. Can you walk us through the highlights of what's changing?
Yeah, so I think the good news is that for the recommended vaccines, the big ones, polio, MMR, pertussis, whooping cough, HPV, varicella, which is the virus that causes chickenpox, none of those recommendations have changed. As you mentioned, they have now sort of subdivided the rest of the vaccines into recommended for high risk and recommended after shared decision making. The one that really stands out here, Kate, is that they've moved the flu vaccine to one that is recommended after shared decision making. I was just on the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics call, and basically what they said was that to do this in the midst of a really, really bad flu season, when we have really good data that this year's vaccine, data from the UK, protects children really well against hospitalization. And we know that the majority of deaths from flu occur in unvaccinated children. This is something that they were very, very shocked and disappointed to see.
Yeah, and Dr. Azar, to be clear, some of those that we were just showing used to be required by doctors or, by school districts. Do we know why this change is happening now?
I wish, Kate, that I could tell you that it was because it was deliberate and evidence-based, but unfortunately, that's not really the case. This is kind of, what is to be expected in terms of the agenda from this administration and this HHS to reevaluate vaccines. Even drawing certain making certain suggestions that the reason for chronic illness in kids is because of vaccines.
Okay, so yeah, I how can I put this in shared clinical decision making? Okay, as a parent, I will say this first and foremost: I believe in science. I believe in doctors. I also believe that yes, because of our history, because of virology, and because of our immune system, and the fact that we do believe in herd immunity. Unfortunately, we do need a lot of vaccines because, hey, we've had a lot of outbreaks. I personally do not want to see smallpox come back. I personally do not want to see a lot of things that were killed back then make a surging comeback. However, RFK is not, and I say this all the time, he's not a doctor, he's not a physician, he's not anything in the medical cert. He is a guy with too much time on his hands and internet, and simple fact of the matter is goes out and finds carcasses or just leaves carcasses in places. He swims in creeks that, again, are defined, not even near the word of safe. This man has had brain leeches, probably still has brain leeches on his mind. And he always sounds like he needs one good cough or a Ricola to clear that mess out. And yet, he is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just sum this up with a pretty little bow. Frack what they're trying to send out for the U.S. guidelines. Listen to your doctor. Listen to folks that have done the education, that have went through clinicals and the boards. Those are the ones I will listen to. Not the hack who will swear up and down that if you give somebody enough vitamin A, they'll be fine. Which, by the way, too much vitamin A is effing dangerous. Just saying. But we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, guys, because like we said on How to Frack out here, we usually follow a lot of things that are doom and gloom, make you lose your faith in humanity. But hey, today's Wednesday. Tomorrow will be Thursday. We'll leave you guys out some positive vibes, good vibrations. Who doesn't love a good play? I do enjoy a good play from time to time. I mean, I still go watch Hamilton. I'll still watch Rent, Wicked, and Wicked for Good. Again, I am learning that there are a lot of plays out there that I do love to watch. That being said, a family did get to enjoy Aladdin, the Broadway play, and actually had some fun and some surprises. Check it out.
We're both lifelong Disney devotees, passing down their love of Disney to their kids. Daughter Jordan and son Landon quickly becoming fans themselves, especially of Disney's Aladdin. So when Aladdin on Broadway heard the Gagers wanted to surprise their 2 kids with tickets, the show's cast decided to make the experience extra special for them. The Gager family hopped on the train from Long Island, unaware of all the surprises that were in store. Aladdin cast member Marcus M. Martin jumped at the chance to join in.
All right, they're right there. They have no idea the day that they are in store for. Hi, how are you? Would you like to make a wish on the genie's land? Yeah, all of you, come on. And just let me know what you want to wish for.
Wish to see Aladdin on Broadway.
You wish to see Aladdin on Broadway. All right, okay, we might be able to do something. Come on, follow me. Turn around. You all are going to see the matinee performance of Aladdin on Broadway today. Are you excited? Everybody, the Gager family is going to see Aladdin!
First, the show wanted to give the Gagers a glimpse of what it's like to perform Aladdin on Broadway. For this assignment, the show brought in Lauren Chapman.
Let me see it in 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh, you look great! More often than not. Look at you, Rockettes. Mustache splatter, mustache splatter. Yes. Arabian Nights, like Arabian Days. Give yourselves a round of applause. 1, 2, 3. Aladdin!
Then it was time to take their seats to watch the real performers take the stage.
Mr. Aladdin, sir, have a wish or 2 or 3. On both the job, got big pop. Ain't never had a fair life.
Sad and confined, and always locked behind me.
The Gagers got to get a special view of the curtain call.
We have a very special group, a family of Aladdin superfans, Disney superfans. So give them a big old round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the Gager family!
You are awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And Jordan's big dream came true, meeting Jasmine.
I've always just loved this movie, and I just love Jasmine and Aladdin, just all of it.
She saw someone on the screen that looks like her.
Yeah.
I love you so
No, I love you too.
Marcus gives the Gagers a backstage tour.
Some of the gold canes during Friend Like Me. Come on. Never had a friend. Hey, there we go. Come on. The magic box that Aladdin disappears in.
That looks real, right?
I know, right? Real. Some of our lovely ladies in Agra wear. Oh, this is the staff our Jafar uses.
There's time for one last magical moment.
I heard that y'all learned some steps. A couple steps from the show this morning. How many times do you get to dance on a Broadway stage? 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, it's such a fun show. And
Hey, I don't care what this is. That little boy said, I'm going to make my mark. Again, that's fun. Again, if you haven't had a chance to watch play, I mean, look, they're out there. Nothing wrong with the theater, because Lord knows we need something to distract us, or at least, give us some hope. But love that film. We got to enjoy that. That being said, guys, that's good for this podcast. I do thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know it's live. Apologize for the runtime, guys, but we had a lot to catch up on since our holiday break. But again, thanks for being back with us in 2026. Hopefully you guys have had a happy new year, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Festivus for the rest of us, as well as Christmas, as we are now back at it. Shameless plugging as always before we do kind of wrap this up. Shout out to APR TV. Why? Because How the Frack We Got Here can be seen on APR TV. Can be seen on the Roku channel or Amazon Fire TV app, but definitely check them out at Always Press Record TV or APRTV.com. Blur Station. You guys heard me talk about Blur Station all the time. It is the streaming site that is definitely for us, by us, with content to enjoy. Movies, television, anime, you name it, they have it. $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. Simply go to blurstation.com, hit the Join Now button, and go from there. And Blur Station can be streamed on all smart devices. Definitely check that out. Of course, check us out, How the Frack Got Here on YouTube. Literally type in How the Frack Got Here podcast. Well, the first thing that pops up. like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button. Anytime that we do go live, you'll be able to see that. And every other podcast we've done since then is definitely there to watch. If you ever do miss an episode, you can always go back there. Definitely check us out, guys, because again, none of us cannot be done without you. We appreciate everybody that subscribes, that shares, that lets us know what we're doing, that we appreciate that. Trust me, we are more appreciative than you will ever know. Also, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're everywhere that you can get your podcasts, especially on Spotify. How the Fact We Got Here, definitely like and follow there, guys. So anytime we do upload our audio, you can definitely listen there. Of course, on Google, on Apple Podcasts, things of that nature. Wherever you basically get them, you can find us. And as well as How the Fact We Got Here on all socials. You definitely can't miss us, but we appreciate all of you guys. Outside of me, my own personal social, Black_Spartan615, you can definitely follow me there. I usually talk to everybody. Just don't make it weird. I don't want to get the habit of blocking people. Outside of that, guys, protect your peace. Definitely protect your peace, especially in this 2026 elections or November elections. Again, as we reset the clock, 10 months, not too far away from now. So again, get to know your candidates. Democrats, time to pound the pavement. Let's not wait till 4 months away from the election to actually start being serious about stuff. But for the rest of us, get involved, but also protect your peace. Learn to relax, go outside, enjoy the weather, because right now it's unseasonably warm, which means a cold front is coming, and I personally cannot wait. At the same time, check on your friends, call or text. At the same time, guys, like we said, live life. Everything is going to be okay, but let's do the work when it comes to November, because I want to see tacos sweat personally. But the last thing I'll say about How the Fact Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information by link of your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past, making decisions down that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman as Federal Reserve Governor, and maybe one day electing our first Black woman to be called Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves, why above all else? Why above all else? Crap, I forgot the outro. Oh, God, I completely forgot the outro. Why do we let politicians still single shame in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching. Please take care of yourselves. Stay shut up, and I promise I will do a better intro next time. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching and on the replay. Peace.